Imagine waking up one ordinary morning in the United States. The sun is rising, the alarm clock is ringing, and millions of people grab their phones before even getting out of bed. But something is wrong. The Wi-Fi won't connect, your mobile data shows no service, and none of your favorite apps will load. At first, you think it's just your router or your phone acting up. Maybe restarting it will fix the problem. But after a few minutes of frustration, you realize this isn't just happening to you, it's happening everywhere. The internet across the entire country has gone dark. No Google, no TikTok, no emails, no online payments. For the next 24 hours, America is completely offline. In this video, we're going to explore what would happen, step by step, as the hours tick by during this unprecedented digital blackout. From businesses and hospitals to schools and everyday families, we'll see exactly how dependent modern life has become on the invisible network that connects us all. The first hour. Shock and confusion. It's 7 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, and millions of Americans are starting their daily routines. Coffee machines are buzzing, breakfast is being prepared, and kids are getting ready for school. Normally, this is when people glance at their phones to check emails, scroll through social media, or check the weather before leaving home. But today, nothing loads. Instagram won't refresh. TikTok videos won't play. Even Google Search, the backbone of modern life, is unreachable. At first, people assume it's just their Wi-Fi. They reset their routers, switch between Wi-Fi and mobile data, and even restart their devices. But after several failed attempts, panic starts to set in. Something bigger is happening. Families begin talking about the issue around the breakfast table. Parents worry about not being able to check traffic updates or online news. Teenagers groan about losing streaks on Snapchat or being unable to message friends. Workers preparing for their morning commute realize they can't access their company emails, Slack messages, or Zoom calls. What feels like a minor inconvenience at first begins to feel unsettling. Coffee shops and restaurants are among the first businesses to feel the effect. Customers who usually order ahead through mobile apps suddenly have to stand in long lines to place orders in person. Payment systems that depend on internet connectivity struggle to process transactions. Some locations switch to cash only, but in today's cashless society, very few people are prepared for that. The frustration spreads quickly as customers leave without their morning coffee fix, confused and annoyed. Meanwhile, in New York, Wall Street traders are already on edge. Their trading systems rely on instant internet access to global markets. By 9 a.m., they realize it's not just a small glitch. The markets cannot open properly because data feeds are completely frozen. The most powerful financial hub in the world is paralyzed, and news anchors on television scramble to explain the situation with limited information. Television networks and local radio stations become the primary source of updates. Emergency broadcasts confirm that this is not a local outage or a single provider issue. The entire country is experiencing a nationwide internet blackout. Speculation spreads rapidly. Is this a cyber attack from a hostile foreign power? A catastrophic technical failure? Or perhaps even an intentional shutdown by the government? With no online fact-checking or instant news updates, rumors spread by word of mouth faster than truth. By the end of the first hour, the mood across America shifts dramatically. What started as confusion quickly evolves into concern. Parents begin to worry if schools will even open without digital attendance systems. Office workers wonder how they'll get through the day without access to emails or cloud documents. People who depend on the internet for work, school, or personal connections already feel isolated. The first cracks in daily life have appeared, and the realization sets in. The internet isn't just gone for a few minutes. It's gone everywhere, for everyone. all at once. Businesses and banks collapse into chaos. By late morning, the economic consequences of the internet blackout are undeniable. Across the United States, businesses of all sizes discover that their most basic operations are tied to online systems. From small family-owned shops to Wall Street powerhouses, the absence of internet connectivity sends shockwaves through the entire economy. The first signs of trouble are visible in retail stores and restaurants. Cash registers that normally process card payments through online verification are suddenly useless. Many stores quickly put up cash-only signs, but the problem is immediate. Most Americans rarely carry cash anymore. Customers shuffle uncomfortably in line, checking their wallets only to realize they have a few crumpled bills, nowhere near enough to cover a purchase. Frustrated, many leave empty-handed. Banks quickly become the epicenter of chaos. ATMs, which rely on online communication to verify withdrawals, begin malfunctioning. Some work sporadically, but others display service unavailable messages, leaving long lines of worried customers outside. Panic begins to spread as word travels that cash may soon run out. Inside branches, employees attempt to reassure clients, but the reality is grim. Digital systems for transferring money, verifying balances, and approving loans are all frozen. Millions of Americans who depend on direct deposit suddenly have no access to their funds. In New York, Wall Street is paralyzed. The New York Stock Exchange halts activity because trades cannot be executed. For the first time in decades, the financial heart of America goes silent. Investors and traders who normally thrive on split-second decisions are forced to stand still, staring at screens filled with error messages. Television anchors speak nervously about billions in frozen assets, while analysts speculate on the long-term impact if the shutdown continues. For ordinary Americans, these numbers feel distant, but the effects will soon trickle down into everyday life. Small businesses across the country suffer the most. A local diner in Kansas can no longer take online delivery orders. A florist in Florida loses thousands in canceled wedding arrangements because clients cannot pay electronically. A car repair shop in Oregon struggles to order parts because supply chain systems are offline. Some businesses attempt to adapt by dusting off old paper receipt books or manually writing down transactions, but most lack the infrastructure to keep up. In just a few hours, the convenience of digital commerce is exposed as both a strength and a vulnerability. Meanwhile, large corporations are not immune. Logistics companies like FedEx and UPS, which rely on digital tracking, lose the ability to follow shipments in real time. Warehouses are full, but drivers don't know where to go. Supermarkets cannot process restocks efficiently, leading to early shortages of certain products. Restaurants running on thin margins struggle without online reservations and digital supply chains. By midday, the American economy resembles a machine grinding to a halt. The internet, once considered merely a tool, is revealed to be the very bloodstream of commerce. Without it, money doesn't move, goods don't flow, and businesses don't function. The entire system, from mom-and-pop stores to multinational corporations, is frozen in place, waiting for a connection that doesn't exist. Healthcare and emergency services in crisis. As the internet blackout stretches further into the morning, hospitals and healthcare providers across America face an unprecedented crisis. In most medical facilities, the internet is not just a convenience, it's a lifeline. Electronic health record systems, prescription databases, diagnostic equipment, and scheduling platforms all depend on uninterrupted connectivity. The moment the network goes dark, doctors and nurses are forced to improvise. Emergency rooms, already overcrowded, suddenly operate without the ability to instantly pull up patient histories. A patient with chest pain arrives, but doctors cannot see their digital record, allergies, or prior procedures. Staff scramble for paper files, but those records are incomplete or outdated. Pharmacies also feel the strain almost immediately. Millions of Americans rely on electronic prescriptions, insurance authorizations, and real-time pharmacy databases. Without them, pharmacists cannot confirm dosages, refill authorizations, or coverage approvals. Imagine a patient with diabetes who needs insulin. Normally, their prescription is verified within minutes through online insurance systems. But now, the process halts. Patients are asked to return later, but many cannot wait. The consequences of even short delays in medication could be life-threatening. Rural communities face unique struggles. Many of them depend heavily on telemedicine, which allows specialists in major cities to consult with local doctors remotely. That entire system vanishes. A cancer patient in a small Montana town who had a video appointment scheduled with an oncologist in Chicago suddenly loses access to vital care. Parents of children with chronic conditions are left in limbo, unable to reach specialists who provide guidance from hundreds of miles away. Emergency services, though still partially functional, are slowed dramatically. The 911 system itself operates through phone lines, but the digital infrastructure that coordinates ambulances, police, and fire units depends heavily on the internet. Dispatchers struggle to track available units, forcing them to rely on radio calls and manual maps. In large cities, where timing is everything, response times lengthen. An ambulance rushing to a car accident in Los Angeles may take longer to arrive simply because GPS routing and digital coordination are unavailable. For critical patients, those extra minutes could mean the difference between life and death. Inside hospitals, chaos grows. Staff are forced to write notes by hand, delaying communication. Specialists who often share medical images electronically cannot transfer files. Lab results that would normally be uploaded instantly must now be physically carried between departments. Even hospital cafeterias face difficulties, as their supply chains and payment systems also rely on online platforms. For the average American, the healthcare disruptions may not be visible right away. But for those in medical emergencies, the impact is immediate and terrifying. Families calling hospitals for updates on loved ones face busy signals or vague information. People who rely on digital devices, such as heart monitors, insulin pumps, or remote care gadgets, find themselves cut off from their providers. By mid-morning, it is clear that healthcare in America is dangerously vulnerable to internet failure. Hospitals are resourceful and healthcare workers are resilient, but the system is designed for a connected world. Without the internet, every second is slower, every task harder, and every risk greater. What was once an efficient network of care now resembles a fragile system stretched to its breaking point. Travel and transportation collapse. By early afternoon, the transportation sector begins to feel the full weight of the internet blackout. Across the United States, millions of people rely on online systems for travel, whether commuting to work, booking flights, or shipping goods across the country. Without the internet, the modern American transportation network quickly unravels, exposing just how dependent it has become on digital communication and real-time data. Airports are the first and most visible sign of chaos. Normally, air traffic flows smoothly thanks to a constant stream of online coordination between airlines, airports, and federal agencies. Ticketing systems, digital boarding passes, and baggage tracking all depend on internet connectivity. The moment these systems fail, travelers are left stranded. Long lines form at check-in counters as agents resort to handwritten boarding passes and paper manifests. Confusion grows when passengers cannot access flight information, boarding gates, or delay notifications on their phones. Departures grind to a halt, with some flights canceled outright because pilots and crew cannot receive updated weather data or routing instructions. For an industry that runs on split-second precision, the internet outage feels like slamming on the brakes of a speeding car. On the ground, public transportation networks experience similar breakdowns. Subway systems in major cities like New York and Chicago struggle to communicate to train delays and schedule changes. Electronic payment systems like Metro cards or digital ticketing apps stop working, leaving passengers frustrated at turnstiles. Bus networks face disruptions as GPS tracking and scheduling software go offline. Drivers, who normally receive real-time updates about detours, traffic, or breakdowns, are left navigating blind. Highways become increasingly congested. GPS navigation, which millions of drivers depend on, is suddenly unavailable. People try to recall old routes, rely on outdated paper maps, or simply follow the flow of traffic. Delivery trucks, already struggling due to logistical breakdowns in warehouses, face even greater problems on the road. Without real-time tracking, dispatchers cannot guide drivers or reroute them around accidents and closures. What was once an efficient network of goods moving seamlessly across the country turns into a slow and error-prone system. Railroads, both passenger and freight, are also hit hard. Amtrak trains rely on online booking systems, leaving passengers stranded at stations without tickets. Freight trains, which transport coal, oil, grain, and countless other essentials, suffer delays because digital monitoring and scheduling tools are down. Even when trains depart, coordinating track usage without internet-based systems becomes a challenge, raising safety concerns. Air traffic control itself remains partially operational, since it has its own secure systems separate from the public internet. However, coordination with commercial airlines and international flights becomes much more difficult. The result is fewer flights in the sky, longer delays, and an uneasy sense that the system could falter further if the blackout continues. For ordinary Americans, the impact is immediate. A family vacation is ruined because their flight is canceled. A commuter misses work because the subway won't accept their digital pass. A business shipment is delayed, costing thousands of dollars. The transportation network, once considered one of America's greatest strengths, proves just as fragile as any other sector when the internet disappears. Media, communication, and social networks collapse. By mid-afternoon, another wave of disruption sweeps across the country. The collapse of communication and media. For decades, Americans have relied on the internet not only to connect with each other, but also to access news, entertainment, and emergency information. Without it, the nation enters an informational blackout, one that is just as unsettling as the silence in workplaces or airports. The absence of instant communication fuels fear, confusion, and a growing sense of isolation. Social media, once the beating heart of daily life, goes completely silent. For billions of people worldwide, platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are their primary sources of news and personal connection. In America, people wake up each morning scrolling through feeds for updates, memes, or breaking headlines. Now, without these platforms, Americans feel cut off from the digital conversations that shape their routines. Influencers lose their audiences overnight. Advertisers lose millions of dollars in ad revenue, and users lose a vital tool for self-expression. More importantly, the absence of instant information leaves citizens uninformed during a national crisis. Traditional media outlets, such as television and radio, suddenly become the primary sources of news once again. However, even they are not fully insulated. Many news organizations rely heavily on the internet for research, communication between reporters, and content distribution. Television channels struggle to gather accurate updates because journalists cannot send footage or coordinate live reports online. Radio stations, while more resilient, face challenges in relaying timely information because they, too, depend on digital databases and internet-connected systems for content production. The result is a fragmented information landscape where Americans receive outdated or incomplete reports. Ordinary communication also suffers. Messaging apps like WhatsApp, Messenger, and iMessage, which rely on internet data, stop working completely. Families trying to check on relatives in other states face uncertainty. Long-distance couples, parents of college students, and even military families feel disconnected. With social media down, people resort to old-fashioned phone calls and text messages, causing cellular networks to become congested. While phone carriers remain operational, the surge in call volume overwhelms their infrastructure, leading to dropped calls and busy signals. Americans who once took instant global communication for granted now find themselves struggling to reach loved ones across town. The entertainment industry takes a huge blow as well. Streaming platforms such as Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, and Spotify go offline, leaving millions without their daily escape into movies, shows, or music playlists. Cable TV usage spikes, but many households no longer have active subscriptions, having long since cut the cord in favor of streaming services. For those who still own DVDs, Blu-rays, or music collections, a sense of nostalgia returns. But for younger generations who grew up entirely in the streaming era, the silence is jarring. Most alarming is the rise of misinformation. With no internet fact-checking or real-time updates, rumors spread rapidly through word of mouth and traditional media gaps. Panic-driven theories about cyber attacks, foreign interference, or government conspiracies spread in neighborhoods and workplaces. Lacking trusted, centralized communication, Americans struggle to separate fact from speculation, creating a dangerous atmosphere of confusion. By sunset, the collapse of media and communication networks has left Americans not only disconnected from their loved ones, but also starved of reliable information. In an age where connection defines identity and society, the silence of the digital world feels louder than any sound they have ever known. Banking, finance, and money panic. As the internet blackout enters the late afternoon, America's financial backbone begins to buckle under the pressure. Modern banking is almost entirely dependent on online systems, from everyday credit card transactions at local grocery stores to the multi-billion-dollar trades happening on Wall Street. When the internet shuts down, financial life as Americans know it grinds to a halt, sparking panic among individuals, businesses, and global markets watching from afar. For ordinary Americans, the effects appear first at the checkout line. Credit and debit card payments, which require internet-based verification systems, stop working almost instantly. Shoppers are forced to abandon carts full of groceries or search desperately for cash they may not have. ATMs, which also rely on online connections to banking networks, are unable to dispense money, leaving people frustrated and fearful. A country where fewer and fewer people carry physical cash suddenly realizes just how fragile a cashless society can be. Small businesses, restaurants, and gas stations either refuse service or begin accepting online cash, sparking long lines and tension among customers. In major cities, the situation escalates quickly. People who left work to grab essentials like food, medicine, or fuel discover that electronic payments cannot be processed. Some try writing personal checks, a nearly forgotten method of payment, only to find businesses hesitant to accept them without verification. A barter-like economy emerges in small pockets where neighbors trade goods or services when official transactions fail. For younger generations, who have never operated without mobile payment apps like Venmo, PayPal, or Cash App, the sudden return to cash feels like stepping back decades in time. Meanwhile, the financial markets enter uncharted territory. Stock exchanges rely heavily on digital infrastructure, algorithmic trading, and internet-based communications to handle billions of dollars in transactions each day. With internet access frozen, trading halts. Investors, unable to buy or sell, watch helplessly as their portfolios sit idle. Rumors swirl that markets may crash once systems come back online, as delayed trades and pent-up reactions unleash volatility. On Wall Street, brokers gather in confusion, stripped of the high-speed tools that normally define their world. Globally, investors in Asia and Europe anxiously monitor the crisis, fearing ripple effects that could destabilize the international economy. Banks themselves face mounting pressure. Customers rush to physical branches in search of withdrawals, only to discover that tellers cannot access account balances or verify funds without online systems. Panic grows as people realize their money is effectively trapped in digital vaults, inaccessible without the internet. Security concerns also rise. Without online monitoring, banks cannot track fraudulent transactions or cyber attacks, making them vulnerable to theft and exploitation once connectivity is restored. The government and Federal Reserve scramble to reassure the public. Emergency broadcasts urge calm, emphasizing that the financial system remains intact and that no money has disappeared. Yet reassurance does little to ease anxiety when people cannot buy basic necessities or access their savings. The lack of liquidity, cash circulating in communities, creates a tense atmosphere. Lines outside bank branches stretch for blocks, echoing scenes from historic financial crises. By nightfall, the American financial system, once a symbol of stability and global leadership, stands exposed as deeply dependent on an invisible network of digital connections. In just a few hours, without the internet, money, the cornerstone of modern life, has transformed from a symbol of trust into a source of fear. Healthcare and emergency services under strain. As evening approaches, the spotlight shifts to one of the most critical sectors affected by the internet shutdown: healthcare and emergency services. In a modern society where hospitals, pharmacies, and first responders rely heavily on interconnected systems, the absence of online communication creates a dangerous environment where every second counts and lives hang in the balance. Inside hospitals, the silence of disconnected computers is deafening. Electronic health records, EHRs, the digital lifelines of modern medicine, become inaccessible. Doctors and nurses can no longer instantly pull up a patient's medical history, allergies, prescriptions, or past procedures. Instead, they are forced to rely on limited paper backups, which are often incomplete or outdated. For critical cases, such as trauma patients rushed into the ER, this lack of information can mean the difference between life and death. Hospitals attempt to adapt by handwriting notes, but the pace of emergencies quickly overwhelms staff used to streamlined electronic systems. Medical devices that depend on internet connectivity also suffer. Telemedicine services, which have grown dramatically in recent years, go offline, leaving rural patients unable to consult specialists hundreds of miles away. Some advanced machines used for diagnostics and monitoring fail to operate without digital input, forcing doctors to revert to less precise manual methods. Pharmacies, too, face chaos. Prescription systems are heavily reliant on online databases to verify insurance, track inventory, and communicate with doctors' offices. Without access, Pharmacists cannot confirm prescriptions or check for dangerous drug interactions, leaving many patients without life-saving medications. Ambulance services are thrown into turmoil. Dispatch systems, which normally rely on internet-based GPS mapping and digital coordination, must fall back on radio communication. Response times slow as drivers struggle with outdated paper maps or verbal instructions. In cities where every second matters, this delay costs lives. Fire departments and police forces also experience setbacks as their data-sharing systems collapse. Coordination between emergency units becomes clumsy and inefficient, increasing risks during natural disasters, accidents, or violent incidents. The public grows increasingly fearful. Parents with sick children find themselves unable to call telehealth hotlines for guidance. Elderly patients waiting for prescription refills are told they must wait until systems are restored. Those who depend on wearable medical devices connected to the internet like insulin monitors or heart rate trackers face sudden uncertainty when their apps go dark. Pharmacies and hospitals become overcrowded with anxious patients seeking reassurance, straining limited staff even further. Government agencies attempt to step in, broadcasting on radio and television that emergency services remain operational. Yet for many Americans accustomed to dialing up an app or Googling symptoms, the lack of instant health information feels like a terrifying blind spot. Rumors spread quickly about hospital shortages or medicine stockpiles, driving panic and fueling long lines outside medical facilities. By late evening, the healthcare system is pushed to its limits. Doctors, nurses, and first responders continue to fight valiantly, but their ability to deliver care is weakened by the sudden loss of the tools they rely on most. In just one day without the internet, America learns that medicine is not just about skill and compassion, it is also about information. And without that information, even the best trained professionals face impossible odds. Education, learning, and daily routines in crisis. As America pushes deeper into its first full day without the internet, attention turns to schools, universities, and the daily routines of millions of families. For decades, education has been steadily reshaped by digital tools, online platforms, and instant access to information. When the internet vanishes, this progress suddenly feels like a double-edged sword, exposing how dependent teachers and students have become on connectivity. In classrooms across the country, teachers are caught off guard. Many rely on digital lesson plans, smart boards, and online resources to guide their instruction. Without access to websites, videos, or cloud-based materials, entire lessons are disrupted. Teachers scramble to adapt, digging through filing cabinets for old worksheets or improvising with chalkboards. While some veteran educators find it easy to revert to traditional teaching methods, younger teachers raised on technology often feel unprepared. Students too struggle with the change. Generations accustomed to typing answers into tablets or submitting assignments online suddenly face handwritten essays and printed textbooks. For some, this shift feels almost impossible, as handwriting and manual research are skills they rarely practice. Universities and colleges, heavily reliant on online systems, descend into chaos. Professors cannot access digital course platforms like Blackboard or Canvas, leaving them unable to post assignments, grade papers, or communicate with students. Research, much of which requires access to online journals and databases, grinds to a halt. Graduate students working on dissertations or scientific projects feel stranded without digital libraries or remote collaborations. For international students who rely on email and video calls to stay connected with families abroad, the isolation grows even more difficult. Daily routines in households also change drastically. Parents accustomed to online calendars and digital communication with schools find themselves in the dark about schedules, announcements, or closures. PTA meetings, after-school programs, and extracurricular activities cannot coordinate effectively. Students who depended on online tutoring services, language apps, or educational YouTube videos are left without guidance. Parents, already stressed by the broader blackout, now take on the role of teachers, digging out encyclopedias or relying on their own knowledge to help with homework. For children and teenagers, the loss of the internet feels particularly harsh. Many rely not only on online education, but also on digital spaces for social interaction and identity. Without access to group chats, social media, or multiplayer games, they experience a sense of disconnection from their peers. Some neighborhoods see a return to outdoor play, with kids gathering in parks or driveways, rediscovering face-to-face friendships. Others, however, feel lonely and frustrated, unsure how to fill their time without digital entertainment or communication. The disruption also highlights inequalities. Wealthier families with home libraries, board games, and access to private tutors find ways to adapt. Meanwhile, low-income households, which often rely on public school resources and online access for both learning and childcare, face far greater challenges. The educational gap between rich and poor, already a national issue, widens in just one day without the internet. By late evening, America's students, teachers, and parents share a collective realization. Education in the digital age is not just enhanced by the internet, it is built upon it. Without that foundation, learning feels slower, harder, and far less connected to the outside world. The blackout has turned back the clock, forcing millions to relearn what school looked like in a pre-digital era. Entertainment, media, and the collapse of instant culture. As night deepens across the United States, the absence of the internet becomes even more striking in the world of entertainment and media. In modern America, digital platforms dominate how people relax, consume culture, and stay informed. With streaming services, online gaming, podcasts, and social media suddenly unavailable, the country faces not just boredom, but a cultural void that highlights how deeply leisure has been rewired by constant connectivity. Households that usually unwind by streaming their favorite shows on platforms like Netflix, Hulu, or Disney Plus discover their screens frozen on error messages. Binge watchers left mid-season are frustrated, while families accustomed to movie nights struggle to find DVDs or Blu-rays buried in old cabinets. Cable TV, once thought obsolete, sees a sudden resurgence, but even here, viewers quickly realize that modern cable boxes rely on internet connections for on-demand features and program guides. Instead of personalized entertainment, Americans are thrown back to fixed broadcast schedules, sparking complaints, but also nostalgia for a time when everyone tuned in together. Music fans also face disruption. Streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, and Pandora, the backbone of modern listening habits, go silent. For many, the idea of digging out CDs, vinyl records, or downloading music offline feels foreign or outdated. Commuters accustomed to curated playlists on their drives sit in silence or rely on terrestrial radio, which suddenly becomes a central hub of entertainment once again. Talk radio hosts seize the opportunity, offering live updates, humor, and call-in sessions that reconnect listeners in ways forgotten during the digital era. Gamers, one of the most passionate online communities, experience a particularly sharp shock. Multiplayer games collapse without online servers, leaving millions unable to play with friends or participate in tournaments. Competitive esports, a billion-dollar industry, grind to a halt. Streamers on Twitch and YouTube, who depend on internet audiences are silenced overnight. Many players turn to single-player campaigns, dusting off consoles and cartridges from earlier generations. What begins as frustration slowly shifts into a rediscovery of offline gaming culture, where the joy lies not in leaderboards or live streams, but in personal challenges and stories. Meanwhile, the news media faces its own crisis. Online journalism, from major outlets to independent blogs, is inaccessible. Americans accustomed to checking breaking news on Twitter or Google find themselves turning back to television broadcasts, AM/FM radio, and printed newspapers. The flow of information slows dramatically, creating a sense of disorientation. Rumors spread more easily, as fact-checking resources are unavailable to the public. Families huddle around television sets at specific times for updates, a routine that feels like a throwback to the mid-20th century. Social media's absence reshapes culture most profoundly. Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter vanish, stripping away the constant flow of memes, trends, and viral moments that define modern conversations. Influencers lose their stage, celebrities lose their direct line to fans, and ordinary users lose their communities of followers and friends. Instead, conversations move offline to living rooms, porches, and neighborhood gatherings. People debate, share stories, and gossip face-to-face, rediscovering interpersonal dynamics that had long been mediated by screens. By the end of the night, the blackout of entertainment and media has done more than create boredom. It has shattered the illusion of endless choice and instant gratification. America, a country where culture is consumed on demand, finds itself reminded of an era when patience, physical media, and shared experiences defined leisure. The loss feels uncomfortable, even unbearable for some, but it also sparks an unexpected rediscovery of slower, more communal forms of entertainment. The morning after, reflection, lessons, and lasting impact. As dawn breaks over America on the second day, the silence of the internet outage begins to feel both heavy and strangely illuminating. By this point, the population has spent a full 24 hours without the digital lifeline that usually powers nearly every aspect of daily life. While frustration and disruption have defined much of the experience, the morning after reveals deeper lessons about resilience, fragility, and what it truly means to live in a hyper-connected society. Across households, conversations spark over breakfast tables that normally would have been quiet, each family member buried in their phone or scrolling social media feeds. Parents talk with children about how different the day felt without constant pings and notifications. Some teenagers, while eager for the internet to return, admit they enjoyed spending time outdoors or rediscovering hobbies like drawing, music, or board games. Adults, too, reflect on the sudden free time that appeared when Netflix, online shopping, and endless scrolling disappeared. While most are ready for life to go back to normal, a surprising number begin to wonder whether normal was always healthy. At workplaces, leaders and employees gather for debriefs on how the blackout affected productivity. Some industries faced near paralysis, but others discovered hidden strengths. Teams that relied on constant messaging platforms like Slack or Teams were forced to meet in person, and some found that face-to-face conversations solved problems more quickly. Small businesses that had prepared contingency plans fared better, while others realized how dangerously dependent they were on online systems. For many, the outage became a wake-up call to invest in offline backups, emergency plans, and stronger communication strategies. Government officials, cybersecurity experts, and economists hold press conferences to analyze the consequences. They discuss the vulnerabilities exposed by the shutdown, how critical systems in finance, healthcare, and transportation barely held together without internet access. Officials promised to investigate the cause, whether it was a cyber attack, technical failure, or deliberate test of resilience. Citizens, however, are left uneasy. The realization that life can be upended so quickly by a single point of failure shakes public confidence in both private corporations and government institutions. By midday, when the internet is finally restored, a wave of relief washes over the country. Phones buzz with backed-up notifications, social media feeds flood with memes about the blackout, and businesses scramble to catch up on missed transactions. Yet beneath the laughter and relief lies a more serious recognition. America has glimpsed what life without the internet truly looks like, and it is both terrifying and strangely freeing. The morning after proves one undeniable truth. The internet is not just a tool, but the nervous system of modern America. Its absence reveals both the fragility of dependence and the resilience of human adaptability. The lessons learned in those 24 hours may fade as screens light up again, but for those who lived through it, the memory lingers. A reminder that even in the most connected society on Earth, disconnection still has the power to redefine what matters most.